Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down how to write a scientific review and how to turn it from something you dread into a real opportunity to make your mark on your field. So let's just get this out of the way. For a lot of us, the idea of writing a review article, well, it makes you kind of groan, right? It feels like this huge chore, just a long, boring summary of what a bunch of other people have already done. But here's the thing, a truly great review is something else entirely. It's not a passive list of facts. It's an active argument. You're not just describing things, you're being critical. You're not just cataloging papers, you're creating a new interpretation. So you've got to stop thinking of yourself as a librarian and start thinking like an architect. And of course, every great architect starts with a blueprint. This is the planning phase, and it is absolutely crucial. This all happens way before you even think about writing the main text.
So what's in this blueprint? Well, it's got three main parts. First, you've got to define your scope, and that means deciding what you're going to cover, but also what you're not going to cover. Then you sharpen that scope into a really focused question. And finally, you pick the type of review you're going to write, which is basically deciding what kind of building you're making.
Let's look at an example of what I mean by sharpening your focus. Recent advances in metagenomics. Come on, that's huge. It's so vague you'll end up with a review that's all over the place. But something like computational methods for strain-level resolution in human gut metagenomics, now that is a focused question. That's the backbone for your whole article. It becomes your North Star for every decision you make.
And picking your review type, that's kind of like picking your building style. A narrative review is like a big, open public building, perfect for introducing a topic to a wide audience. A systematic review, on the other hand, is like a high-tech clean room, engineered to answer one very, very specific question. And a methodological review, that's like a specialized workshop where you're just focused on comparing all the different tools and techniques.
Okay, blueprint is done. Now it's time to gather your building materials, the actual literature. But listen, this isn't about grabbing every single paper you can find. It's about a strategic, well-documented search for only the best bricks to build your argument.
Having a structured search process, even for a simple narrative review, is what gives your work real credibility. So pick your databases, define your search terms, and get super clear on your inclusion and exclusion criteria. What's in, what's out, and you have to document everything. It might seem tedious, but that transparency is what makes people trust your work.
Now, as you're reading, please don't just highlight a few sentences here and there. Take structured notes, something simple like this table. When you do this, you're forced to pull out the same key info from every single paper, and that makes it so much easier to compare studies and spot patterns down the road. You're not just reading anymore, you're actively collecting data.
All right, you've got your blueprint, you've got your materials. Now it's time for the really important part, actually building your argument. This is where the heavy lifting happens, where you take that big pile of studies and turn it into something coherent and insightful.
And just keep this quote in your head the whole time. Your whole job here is to add your own interpretive value. You're the expert guide. You're taking the reader on a tour of the research landscape, showing them where the solid ground is and pointing out where the unexplored territory lies.
This slide gets to the absolute heart of the matter. Summarizing is just a list. Study A found this, study B found that. It's passive. Synthesizing, though, that's active. That's where you connect the dots. You ask, okay, both of these studies show X. But why did study B find Y? Maybe it's the different methods. That new insight you just created, that's the value of your review.
So how do you actually do that? Well, instead of that boring paper-by-paper slog, you organize the body of your review into logical themes. Think of these themes as the different rooms in the building you're constructing. Each room is dedicated to exploring one specific part of your big question, whether that's a certain biological pathway, a new technology, or a clinical application.
Okay, the main structure is built. Your arguments are all in place. Now it's time for the finishing touches. These are the details that are going to make your review not just informative, but actually memorable and impactful. And honestly, one of the most important finishing touches you can add is a fantastic figure. A single, powerful, clear figure can be the one thing a reader remembers months later. It's your chance to visually explain something complex in a way that words just can't. And I don't mean just pretty pictures. Your figures need to teach. A great diagram can finally make a complicated pathway click for somebody. A comparison table can be the exact thing a new grad student needs to pick the right tool for their experiment. These visuals are workhorses, not just decorations. And finally, You have to frame the whole thing with a strong intro and conclusion. Your intro is the grand entrance. It sets the stage and tells the reader exactly why this review is needed right now. And your conclusion and future perspectives? That's your chance to stand on top of this structure you've built, point towards the horizon, and actually help shape the future of the field.
So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that you have to shift your mindset. Writing a great review isn't a passive act of just reporting what's been done. It's an active construction of knowledge. You're not just a reporter, you're an architect, helping to organize, critique, and build the future of your field.
So by approaching your next review with this architect's mindset, with a clear blueprint, quality materials, and a real vision, you can create something that doesn't just get published, but actually gets read and cited and used to inspire that next wave of discovery. You have the blueprint. The only question left is, what will you build?